Did Gilligan rat out Mary Ann decades after they got off the island? From legal troubles to serious illnesses and professional struggles, these are the tragic tales of the Gilligan's Island cast. Russell Johnson already had a fairly long resume before he was cast as Roy Hinckley, aka the Professor on Gilligan's Island, but the Pennsylvania native wasn't always headed to Hollywood. His father died when he was 8, and his mother was then forced to send him to a local orphanage, where he stayed through high school. By the time he graduated, there was really only one option: serving in World War II. Johnson ended up going to radio and mechanics school and then became a part of a B-25 bomber crew that flew 44 missions. He was awarded a slew of medals and citations, including a Purple Heart, which is given to those killed or wounded in combat. During a mission in the Philippines, his crew was sent to bomb a Japanese airstrip from a height of just 100 feet. They ended up in the ocean and their radio operator was killed. Johnson was among those saved by the Army Sea Rescue Group, and he was transferred to a New Guinea military hospital. He'd broken both of his ankles. During a 2007 interview with the Times Leader, he modestly recalled, "We were just like everybody else, just doing our job. We were just fortunate enough to be here today." There was supposedly an intense rivalry between the actresses who played Ginger the movie star and Mary Ann the farm girl, but according to the women themselves, that's pretty far from the truth. As Tina Louise, who played Ginger, told the New York Post in 2020, "Dawn Wells was a very wonderful person. I want people to remember her as someone who always had a smile on her face."
Young men all over the country began asking each other, Ginger or Mary Ann.
And when Wells talked with Closer Weekly in 2019, a year before passing away, she had nothing but positive things to say about her co-star. As far as she was concerned, the more experienced Louise taught her everything she needed to know. Still, there was one dark cloud. As Wells reflected, "I don't think she was told the truth about the show when she was hired." Louise seemingly walked into the show believing that she would be the main character. Once she found out that she was more accurately just one part of an ensemble cast, she nearly quit. Ultimately, a new writer-director was tasked with handling the character of Ginger, and it left Louise conflicted. She insisted to the Post that she loved her character, though she declined to appear in spin-offs and revivals. On Gilligan's Island, Jim Backus played Thurston Howell III, the millionaire who found himself in a situation that no amount of money could fix. When he passed away in 1989, it was revealed that he'd been sick for a while. The official cause of death was pneumonia, but Backus had also been diagnosed with Parkinson's years earlier. When some of the Gilligan's Island cast attended a 70th birthday party for creator Sherwood Schwartz in 1986, Backus had to be carried up the stairs. He spoke about his illness in 1984 to the Petaluma Argus-Courier, revealing that his symptoms started with lightheadedness, dizziness, and fainting. He also admitted, "To me, the physical problems were very real and still are. There is no accurate evaluation of what I have. I haven't been out of this house in almost 6 years. It's a matter of mind over matter, and I'm determined to get well." Long before Natalie Schafer played Lovey Howell, the millionaire's wife, she had a seriously impressive career on Broadway and then later in film. She had no immediate survivors when she passed away at the age of 90 in 1991.
Leave the diamond mine to Gilligan.
Oh, I thought of Ginger for the diamond mine. She has such a lovely throat.
That's all right.
Schafer had once been engaged to a fellow actor named Charles Butterworth. He broke out on the New York stage, and then it was on to Hollywood before his time was cut short by a premature death on June 14, 1946. He left a Hollywood nightclub, got into his car, and started driving, before ending up in a single-car crash. Schafer had previously been married to actor Louis Calhern. They'd already been divorced more than a decade earlier by the time he died in 1956. He'd been on the set of what would have been his 69th film when he suffered a massive fatal heart attack. A parent's worst nightmare is the death of a child, and in 1994, that fate sadly befell Russell Johnson. He and his third wife, Constance, married in 1982, and they remained together until his death in 2014. 20 years earlier, in 1994, his son David died when he was only 39. The official cause of death was complications from AIDS, with David passing 8 years after he lost his partner to the same disease. David was also Los Angeles' first AIDS coordinator, and his father stepped up to do some amazing work in his memory. Russell Johnson became an AIDS activist himself, raising awareness and much-needed funds to benefit a series of charities. Much of his later years were spent doing what he could to make sure other parents didn't have to suffer the same loss that he did. In 2012, Dawn Wells told the Huffington Post, "Our producer Sherwood Schwartz made $90 million on the reruns of Gilligan's Island alone, but we didn't get any of it." However, Sherwood's daughter Hope has called that number ridiculous. Wells has also claimed that she made $700 a week. She was new to the industry and stressed that more experienced actors got paid more, to the tune of $750 per week. Wells wasn't the only one who spoke out about a lack of compensation. Russell Johnson, for one, was always resentful about how he and his co-stars didn't get a cut of the syndication profits. And Tina Louise confirmed to the Wall Street Journal in 2014 that the cast got nothing in the form of residuals or syndication fees. But she at least had moved on from it, as she admitted, "Money's never been my god." but others have endured serious financial struggles, including Wells, who is a recipient of nearly $200,000 in donations via GoFundMe after a 2-month hospital stay in 2018.
If you don't have a family or a husband or anybody that's got a bankroll for you, it's very expensive.
Being on a hugely successful show is great, but it can also lead to typecasting. Before Gilligan's Island, Russell Johnson was in dozens of movies and scores of TV shows in various genres. It reportedly took him years to come to terms with the fact that he was and would always be the professor, and that was pretty much all there was to it. Bob Denver was also typecast, although kind of ironically so. Before he was Gilligan, he was the cool guy sidekick on The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, and he was so associated with that character that he almost wasn't cast in his most iconic role. But once he took to the high seas, though, most of his roles afterwards were as Gilligan, either on spin-offs, cartoons, or guest spots. And Jim Backus had his own struggles with typecasting, but well before Gilligan's Island. Although he's well known as the millionaire more than anything else now, for years he was only known as the voice of nearsighted cartoon character Mr. Magoo.
Great balls of fire! Look at it rain! A solid sheet of water.
Bob Denver's later years were filled with multiple struggles. His wife Dreama published a memoir in 2012 called Gilligan's Dreams: The Other Side of the Island, in which she described serious financial difficulties due to a lack of residuals. It was hard for them to launch their organization, the Denver Foundation, which supports individuals with special needs, and Denver also had trouble providing for his family. As Dreama explained to Cancer Today, he was never paid more than $1,500 per week, and once an episode had aired twice, there was no more money. In 1984, the Denvers welcomed their son Colin. He was diagnosed with severe autism and a seizure disorder. He required around-the-clock specialized care, which wasn't exactly cheap. As Dreama told Cancer Today in 2014, when money was tight, Bob would go do personal appearances, and that would give us enough to tide us over. We lived hand-to-mouth for a lot of our marriage. According to Dreama, it always haunted her husband that he hadn't held out for a better deal that would have improved their financial standing in later years. Nevertheless, they made the best of it. As she told Fox News in 2016, "We struggled financially, physically, emotionally like anybody else. And sometimes I think it really helps folks to know that celebrities are not immune to the challenges of life." In 1998, Bob Denver found drug enforcement agents knocking on his door. It intercepted a package delivered to him that contained 35 grams of marijuana. He was arrested and later released on bond. Denver was in West Virginia, and shortly after the news broke, a local TV station aired a story claiming that an anonymous source had come forward to say that the package was linked to his old co-star Dawn Wells. That claim has never been confirmed. In fact, it's been adamantly denied by Wells' publicist. But in 2007, she faced her own legal problems. Wells was in Idaho at the time, driving home from a surprise birthday party when she was pulled over by sheriffs who testified that they witnessed unsafe driving. She failed a field sobriety test and was taken into police custody. Meanwhile, she claimed that she had given a ride to some hitchhikers when they decided to light up. 4 half-smoked joints were discovered in her car along with paraphernalia.
Where's all those coconuts on the island? Actually, it's really very depressing. It's embarrassed me and hurt my feelings, and I've lost several jobs because of it.
When Dreama Denver released her memoir, she was incredibly candid about her life with her husband, Bob, as she revealed that their relationship almost didn't survive. As she explained to Fox News, "I didn't think of him as an alcoholic, but he drank way too much, and that was a battle. Maybe it was alcoholism. Bob was a shy person, and for him to have public adulation was odd." Denver had another vice: smoking. Often going through a pack of cigarettes a day, it was the combination of smoking and drinking that was later blamed for the development of his stage 4 hypopharyngeal cancer. This is the type of cancer that forms in the lower part of the throat, larynx, tongue, thyroid gland, and lower jaw. Denver underwent surgery to remove a tumor, and although he survived the operation, post-op tests revealed that there was still cancer in his body. With his chronic poor health a factor in limiting treatment options, it was decided that he wasn't strong enough for chemotherapy. 4 months after his diagnosis, it was already clear that he wouldn't survive. He passed away on September 2nd, 2005 at the age of 70. When the New York Post interviewed Tina Louise in 2020, she was speaking as the last surviving cast member of Gilligan's Island. The interview came on the heels of the death of Dawn Wells, who passed away on December 30th, 2020 at the age of 82 from complications related to COVID-19. Back in 2014, Russell Johnson had passed away at the age of 89 from kidney failure, and Bob Denver had died 9 years earlier in 2005. Which came in the midst of his cancer treatment and following a quadruple bypass. The millionaire's wife, meanwhile, passed away in 1991. Natalie Schafer was 90 when she succumbed to liver cancer on April 10th of that year. And Alan Hale Jr. was 68 at the time of his passing on January 2nd, 1990, from cancer of the thymus. As for Jim Backus, he was 76 when he died of pneumonia on July 3rd, 1989, after living with Parkinson's. His obituary in the New York Times ended with a comment he'd made about Gilligan's Island and its lasting impact, as he declared, "The critics assassinated it, but the kids flipped for it. I've been watching the reruns and confess I'm hooked on it myself."